Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Instagram Live, being brought to you by One of a Kind Kids JA in association with UNICEF. This program is designed to help you with your child with a disability during this time of coronavirus. So we had some questions come in, so I'm going to address those questions first. The first question we had was, how can I teach my child with a disability to be safe from coronavirus? So this is like teaching your child with a disability anything else. But let's start with the first few pointers. The first thing you have to think about is that you're going to be giving your child new information. And when you're giving your child new information, you always have to think about the level that they are able to understand and reason. So you don't want to give things that are too complex. And guess what? Children really don't like complex explanations. Sometimes parents tend to give just too much information. They want things simple. They need their question of the day answered while they move on to something else. The next thing is that you need to know what your child's current self-care skills are, because what you're going to be doing is that you're going to be building on your child's skills. So think about how independent your child is, because remember, we're going to be talking about washing hands, and we're going to be talking about putting on and taking off a mask. So you have to think about what you're going to be able to tell your child about what they need to be able to do. And then you have to think about your child's specific disability. If your child is hearing impaired, then you're going to need sign language interpretation. If your child is vision impaired, then you might want to check out what's available in Braille. If your child has a physical disability, you need to find out how is your child going to maneuver to get to the new areas all the time for the washing. So that's the things you have to think about in the background. The next thing you have to think about is modeling behavior, because you have to make sure that your child is in a position to see everything that you are doing, because you want to model this behavior of wearing a mask, and you want to model this behavior of hand washing, and you want to model the behavior of physical distancing. You want to do all these things so that your child will see that you're not asking them to do something that you yourself aren't doing. In fact, you're showing them what you want them to do. The third key thing about talking with your child about coronavirus is to make it fun and make it a game. So if you want your child to be washing their hands more often, then you have like 10 stickers for the day. And every time they wash their hand, they get a sticker or something else, a tiny sweet or something else that, you know, that says you need to be washing your hands this many times for the day. The other thing that you can do is to make the mask that the child is wearing, you want them to wear the mask all the time. So you have to think about a few things. You have to think about, one, what color? What's your child's favorite color? Make sure the mask is in that color. You also have to think about the material. So children who have hypersensitivities, or children who have eczema or other things that may make the mask even more uncomfortable than it really is, because we all know that it's a little uncomfortable, but we know that we have to go through this discomfort because we want to stay healthy. So think about the material that you're getting the mask made of. And in order to make it really fun, put your child's favorite cartoon character on the mask, whether it's Paw Patrol, whether it's Peppa Pig, regardless. Make it something fun so that your child won't mind having it on. Take a picture of them in the mask and show it to them, and show them that they're wearing their favorite character. So those are the things that you would want to do when you want to teach your child about a disability, teach your child with a disability about the coronavirus. Now, one of the easy ways to teach children things is to use pictures. So you can draw your own pictures and make up your own little story. I mean, some people have done this already, and it's on Google, and you can Google it, right? But If you want to make a story that's very specific to your child, then you can use pictures. And some of you, I'm sure, can draw well, but you can use pictures and teach your child this story about the virus, about how it makes people sick, and about why they have to be at home. You know, one of the things that children have been asking about most is, why do I have to be home? And why can't I see my friends? So you have to explain to them why they have to be home and why they can't see their friends just now. And give them something to look forward to. Tell them that when things get better, we will be able to do this again. We will be able to see our friends. So in the story that you're doing with your child, make sure that you give them some hope. So another question I was asked is, what are the extra things I need to do because my child has a disability? Well, the first thing I would think about is safety. You know, your child with a disability sometimes spends bits of the day somewhere else, at school, at therapy. Now they're at home all day. It's really important that your home environment is very, very safe. Children who are home all day, oh, believe me, they can find things to get into that may make their home environment not so safe. But so you have to be thinking about the safety of your child all the time. The second thing you have to be thinking about is how to keep your child engaged. Some of our children with disabilities might have short attention spans. Some of them, you know, you can't keep them focused, so you have to find new and different and engaging things to make them really get very interested in what it is they're doing. And thirdly, you may have additional care activities that you have to do, especially with things like the hand washing that children have to do so much more frequently. The next question was, how can I help my child with a disability to keep up with learning and development since being out of school? So here's the deal. You are your child's first responder. And you might not have known this, but you have been their first responder all the time. You have been their first responder therapist. You've been their first responder educator. You've been their first responder early intervention specialist. Because although children spend time with these professionals, they really spend a lot of time with you. Just think about the weekends. But here's the important thing about being a first responder. Just think about a first responder in an ambulance who comes to get somebody who's ill. When they come in, they know exactly what that person needs at the time. But guess what? That first responder goes to a hospital and then hands over aspects of the care of that person to somebody else who is trained in other areas. So, you are not a special educator. You are not an early intervention specialist. But what you are is your child's first responder. And you know your child best. So, what are the things that you need to do? Remember, you don't need to know everything. You need to know your child well. Well, in terms of helping your child's learning and development, the first thing you need to ensure is that your child has structure. What structure? Structure is a home timetable. You know, the school has this timetable thing down well, okay? But our homes don't necessarily run like that. But children love structure. In fact, adults love structure. This is why we know what to do on a weekend, separate from on a Monday morning. We know we have to get up, get dressed, go to work. We have structure all the time. And the children had structure. Even if your home was very chaotic, many of our homes are chaotic. We know things happen that throw us out all the time. But even if your home is sometimes chaotic, your children have structure when they go to school. First, they have devotion, then they have class time, then they have break time, then they have more class time, then lunch time. So children know exactly what's going to happen first, and what's going to happen next. And your children need to know this too at home. So you need to set up a home timetable. And so you determine what time the children wake up, what time they have breakfast, what they do next. And so you set this up. And it's really good to make sure that the children know the timetable. So for children who can read well, you can set it up just like, you know, how they write their timetable down at school. But for a lot of our children with disabilities, they may not be able to read well or may have other disabilities. So what we use for those who can see are visual schedules. So we make pictures of what happens first. So you show a picture of them getting out of bed. You show a picture of somebody sitting at breakfast. You can take pictures out of magazines, or you can be creative and draw them yourselves. Yes, a stick man is quite fine, as long as your child can see that it's a stick man and the one that's having breakfast looks different from the one that's at school, from the one that's having fun and having free time and playtime. The next thing you want to do is to make sure that in that home timetable, you have variety. You want to have music and singing. You want to have dancing. You want to have exercise. You want to have some creativity. You want to have some artwork. You want to have all these things in there mixed in with the schoolwork. And so you mix everything up so that your child doesn't feel that home has become school. And you make sure that you do the schedule so that they know what's coming next. You know, when children know that they have some schoolwork to do, but then afterwards they have painting and coloring, they will try to get that schoolwork done. So we talked about the home schedule, we talked about the variety, and you must make things fun for your child. The other thing that you need to do is you need to engage your child in everything that you are doing. Whether you're washing the clothes, whether you are washing the dishes, whether you're cooking in the kitchen, you need to make sure they're safe, but you involve them in everything that they're doing. One parent, I think, said to me, you know, the child doesn't want to learn, but they want to be in the kitchen. That's great. There is so much to learn in the kitchen. You can learn motor skills by mixing, by having your child mix things in a bowl. You can learn what is more or less by doing measurement, by measuring how much goes in when you're cooking. And you can also teach them safety in the kitchen, where is hot and where is not to be touched. Don't worry too much about those other things. You can teach your child so many skills when you have them with you doing lots of activity in the home. Now, the other thing that's really important is that children need alone time. Just like how as an adult sometimes you want to be alone, children need that time too. So make sure you, in your home schedule, you put some alone time for your child in there. Okay, let's see what other questions that we have. So a parent asked, how will I know if I'm doing everything right? You will know you're doing everything right if your child seems very happy and very contented. We know when children feel good about things. They're happy, they're smiling, they're contented. And that's really what you need to know. Remember, right now, our children's mental health and our children's physical health are really more important than keeping up with every single thing at school. Because our children have been stressed a little bit by this coronavirus. They pick up from your stress. They see you and they see that you are anxious too. So they can become a little stressed too because they have picked up on the stresses of all the adults around them. So let's make sure that we do extra hugs, extra kisses, extra love for our children because we want them to feel safe, to feel comforted during this anxious time. So not only do children get stressed, but parents sometimes get stressed. So one parent says, I feel extra stressed being a parent of a child with a disability. What should I do? And that's true. When you are a parent of a child with a disability, you have additional things to do that some other parents might not have to do. There may be extra care. You have medication to administer. There are lots of other things that you have to do. And really, you need to just take care of yourself. You can't take care of your child if you don't take care of yourself. So what do you need to do? You need to make sure that you are eating well. You need to make sure that you have all those healthy foods that the Ministry of Health has been talking about. Good, healthy foods. You also need to make sure that you get some rest. If you don't rest well, it makes you more irritable. And the things that your children do, though they may not be a big deal, may seem to be a big deal. But it's not that. It's really that you're so stressed that you interpret it that way. So if you don't have good sleep and good rest, you will be more irritable and more easily upset. I mentioned the alone time earlier. You need to have alone time. You need to have some time to watch a movie by yourself, read a book, do something fun that you like. You need that alone time too. And you also need exercise. Exercise is good for your mental health as well as your physical health. Exercise also makes you feel much less stressed. So make sure that you get a little bit of exercise every day. And the Ministry of Health has been putting some exercise programs on for both children and parents on television in the mornings. So that's a good activity that all the family can be engaged in. However, if after all of this you still feel that you are very, very stressed, then there are a couple of things that you can do. You can stay right in your home and you can call one of the hotlines that the National Parent Support Commission has put out. There are some 36 different lines. There are lines for each parish. So try to find those telephone numbers, and with those telephone numbers, you can get some help right in the comfort of your home. The other place that you can go is you can go to your local health center, and you can also talk with a friend. Just talking with someone about the problems you are feeling, about the things you are facing, can make you feel so much better. So talk with someone who is a trusted friend, or some of you might have a pastor. Talk with someone or a colleague from work if you're feeling very stressed. It really, really helps. So I've gotten a question here that says, how can I be a better parent for my child with Down syndrome? Can I tell you, Mom, if you are asking this question, you are already a good parent because you want to know how much better you can help your child. And really, what your child wants, your child with Down syndrome or your child with any disability, what they want is you. They want your time. They want your energy. They want to have fun with you. Look for opportunities. Look for things that your child really, really loves to do, and make sure that you are part of that. That's what they want. This is why children sometimes act out, Sometimes children act out and parents think, oh my goodness, what do they want? What they really want is your attention. And they act out sometimes because children have learned very much that it is negative attention that brings parents to them first, right? So if a child has accidentally made a mess, when you come in, you say, oh, look at this mess. But if they have cleared up, you don't say, oh, wonderful, you've done a good job today. So what your child wants most, your child with Down syndrome and your child with a disability, is for you to carve out some time every day just to spend with them, playing with them, reading with them, talking with them, listening to them. That's what they want most. There's a question on screen that says, what can I do to calm my child when she has a temper tantrum? Okay, so temper tantrums occur sometimes because children can't express their feelings very well. And if a child can't express themselves, then they turn it inward and you may get a tantrum. So children with disabilities, we try to help them to express themselves better. So again, we use pictures a lot so that your child who has a disability can take when something is happening that they don't like, that they can show a picture that shows a sad face if they can't communicate that with you verbally. Or they can show a picture that has a happy face to show that you are doing something that they really, really like. So we use pictures a lot. So that will help with your child having a temper tantrum. Sometimes temper tantrums occur because, as I mentioned earlier, children are seeking your attention. So make sure that you give children positive attention through every day. Make sure there's special time that you spend with them. It could be just 15 or 20 minutes, but make sure you spend that time with them so that they don't need to have a tantrum in order to get your attention. Sometimes tantrums are indicating that there's something more seriously wrong. You know that because in the tantrum, the child hurts themselves, because most tantrums, children don't hurt themselves. And you actually know when these are tantrums where they're seeking your attention, because if you ignore them and walk into the next room, they won't stay and have the tantrum outside. They will come in the room where you are because they need you to see that tantrum. Okay, so that's tantrums. Are there any other questions? Okay, so let's talk a little bit about I'm going to go back to the schedules a little bit because I forgot to tell you that those schedules, having that home timetable, is going to be really, really important for preparing your child to go back into this school setting, because it takes some time for them to adjust to get back to school after the summer. Well, this is like summer plus, right? They've been out of school. They will have been out of school for so long. Many of them will have forgotten what that school structure is like. So please remember that home schedule or the home timetable will be critical for them to adjust back into this school setting. And many of you will need to guide the children. We need to prepare them for getting back to school. So we'll need to start telling them a week or two before. We need to start reminding them about school, about what happens at school, talking with them about it, using pictures for those who you need to use pictures to explain to about school. Remind them about their friends, and just guide them about what school is going to be like. Somebody asked, how do you communicate with your child effectively for them to understand, and so you can understand them more as an individual? Okay, to understand people more, you've got to spend a lot of time with them. You've got to know what makes them happy and what makes them sad. You've got to know what makes them excited. And you really only get to know that if you spend a lot of time with them. So that comes back to that time on the floor, that time sitting around the table, spending time with them around that evening meal when you're having dinner, just sitting around and talking and listening. And when children can't speak, just picking up on their emotions, their expressions. It's so important for us to pick up on the expressions that our children are making so that we can know what's going well and what's not going so well. Remember earlier I mentioned that you could use picture cards if your child can't verbalize. You can give them picture cards so that they can show you when you're doing something that's great. They can show you when they don't feel so well. They can show a sad face. They can show a happy face. They can show an excited face. Don't give them too many. They only need about 3 or 4 faces so that they can tell you what's going well and what's not going well. I mentioned about the extra stress that parents might have, and I mentioned about parents' nutrition and parents' sleep. But nutrition and sleep are also really important for your child. Your child should have a really good sleep structure. So just like how we talked about the home timetable, there's a process to getting a child to go to sleep. When our children sleep well, they wake up better rested in the morning. They're better able to participate and learn in all the activities because their brain has been rested, and they feel better. They're not as irritable. They're not as stressed. If they don't sleep, they're going to be very irritable. So how do we do this sleep schedule bit? Well, 8 o'clock is a good time for going off to bed, but before 8 o'clock, you don't expect that everything shuts down at 8, right? You start from about 7 and you start doing the wind down activities. So you make sure that there are no running around the house activities at that time, right? You start with the calming activities. You start with play that is calmer and quieter around the table or on the floor play. And then you do the other activities that you would normally do, the bathing, the brushing of the teeth, the meal. You make sure you do all those activities, and then you end up in the child's bedroom, wherever the child sleeps, and you do a calming activity, which would normally be reading a story or sharing pictures with your child. For those who can't read, you are reading and you are telling them about the pictures. You send them off to bed, you pat them off, tell them good night, make sure it's a quiet, darkened area. Your child can't sleep well if the television is on in the next room and adults are laughing and having fun in the next room. Remember, you need to have a quiet area so that the child can go off to sleep. So the adults kind of have to tone down their activities in order to make sure that children get the type of rest that they need. Rest is really important for children to learn the next day and to have a temperament that is calm and that is ready and willing to take in all the activities that you have planned for the next day. Nutrition for your child is really important too. You want your child to have healthy foods, fresh foods. We're lucky to live in a country where we can go round the back and pick a mango, or we can pick cherries, or we can pick other things. We're really lucky to live in a country such as ours where we have fresh fruits and vegetables available to us more easily than in other countries. And this is what we want our children to have: fresh fruit, fresh vegetables. We don't want too much of that pastry stuff and too much of the sweet stuff. It's not good for the children. It makes them gain more weight. And some of us who have children with disabilities, we're concerned about the weight gain. So we want to make sure that we have fresh fruit and vegetables. And for those who have difficulty with chewing, we want to make smoothies. And fruit and vegetable smoothies are really, really good for your children. So good nutrition, good sleeping, and your children will be very ready for the next day. Are there any other questions that we have? Remember, when you're doing your home schedule, remember, the home schedule that you have may not be the one your friend has. So if your friend tells you, oh, they're getting this done and they're getting that done and they're getting the other done, remember that your friend's home functions a little differently from yours. Your schedule doesn't have to be the same as anybody else's schedule. Your schedule needs to work with how your home functions, but it's important that your child knows what comes first, what comes next, and what comes after that, because your children like things being predictable. They like to know when something starts, what they're going to do next. So I would love to see those homework, those school home schedules that you have done, because I'm sure others would learn from them. So maybe you should begin posting some home schedules and tell us how those are working for you. And it may be okay. It may be that someone will benefit from your home schedule. So UNICEF has some great information for you on their website. They have some activities too that you can do with your child. And the website address is unicef.org/Jamaica. That's unicef.org/Jamaica. This video will be posted afterwards, and persons can message us with any questions afterwards also, and we will try to answer your questions. I hope this has helped you a little bit in working with your child with a disability. Remember, you are your child's first responder. You've always been that. You know your child best, and you've got this. Okay, what is the appropriate bedtime even if she naps is a question that I've been given. Okay, so I'm not sure how old this child is, but most children, preschool children, a lot of preschool children have naps in the daytime. What you want to make sure is that that nap occurs early enough. You can't have the child napping too late. You can't be napping between 5 and 6 because you want them to be back to bed by 8. So you have to make sure that that nap occurs much earlier in the daytime so that they can use up enough energy again and then be able to go off to sleep at 8 o'clock. Remember, if your child wakes up at night, remember, oh, he's 4, the child is 4, so this works. Remember, if your child wakes up at night, your 4-year-old, no food at night, they'll keep waking up. If you keep feeding them, they'll keep waking up. Just pat them back to bed, pat them back, comfort them back to bed. Believe me, if somebody fed me in the middle of the night, I'd wake up too. So just pat your kids back to bed. They'll do fine. Allow them to sleep through the night because that good rest is important for them. Again, let me tell you about the other information that's available on UNICEF's website at the website address unicef.org/Jamaica. Lots of activities there for you and your children to do. Remember, we want you on the floor. We want you playing those activities. We want you spending time in with your child so that they don't have to do tantrums to get your attention, that they know that they have you every day at a particular time. So spend that time with them doing something that they like.